Ait Squile, Watotlam, Son of Snat. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining Children of the Setting Suns, One from the Heart. Thank you for being here tonight on this great day, Earth Day. I'm really excited about tonight's guests that we have. We have Arlie Niskahi, Lisa Wilson from the Lummi Nation, Shanoa Igawa, Jeff Renner, Beth Dolio, and Heather Sparks at the end of the show to do a little performance for us. First of all, we always practice opening up in a good way, and I'd like to call upon Arlie to open us up in that good way. Thank you, Arlie.
Coffee Chi Inishia. I come from the Diné Nation. I am Nanishteja Tachini, born for Tinsakadni. Also, my Che is Tortichibi, and my father's Tlashchi. As we look at this Earth Day that it has come to be known, and as we're going to be referring tonight, Mother Earth Day, it's a very beautiful thought that we hold in our minds, especially now springtime is returning, and the power of life as it reemerges is all around us. And when I was a young boy, I was experiencing a springtime in college, and I looked and I thought, how many springs have I seen? And I think at that time it was 19 springs, and less than that I remembered, but I was that old. And it caused me to think in my life, how many times do we get to see the seasons? How many cars do we own? How many times do we change a place that we live? But the number of seasons that we pass through is just not very many. We live to be 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. Not a whole lot. So every year when the spring returns, I think about that and to take notice of everything that's going on. So at the time of this pandemic, filled with a lot of confusion, as well as sadness, the loss that we're experiencing. And
his is working.
As we go through this time, as I sing this song, I'd like you to carry in your heart and your mind, what is it that you are seeking for yourself, for your family, for your people, for our nation, even for the world? And I tell the young people that I work with that what we hold in our hearts as we sing these songs, that those thoughts will go out, and they will go out to all life, everything that's around us. They know what we're going through. They've been struggling for a long time. They understand how it is to have things totally foreign come and wreak havoc with them. And so they understand. And when they see us going through things, they have empathy for us. So hold in your minds as I share this song. This is a song that I've given to some of the children in my wife Mary's program. And to me, it's a song of seeking. So. Hey, Hi-yo, ee-yo, ho, hey, hey, hey. Hi-yo, ee-yo, hi-yo, ee-yo, ee-yo, hey, 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 hey. Hi-yo, ee-yo, ee, hey, hey, hey. Hi-yo, ee-yo, hi-yo, ee-yo, ee-yo, hey, 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 hey. Hi-yo, ee-yo, hey, hi-yo, ee-yo, hey, hi-yo, ee-yo, hi-yo, ee-yo, ee-yo, hey, hi-yo, ee-yo, hey, hi-yo, ee-yo, hi-yo, ee-yo, ee-yo, hi-yo, ee-yo, hi-yo, ee-yo, hi-yo, ee-yo, E-O, hey. Hi-yo, E-O, hey. Hi-yo, E-O, hi-yo, E-O, E-O, hey. Oh, oh, oh.
Haishka Arlie. Beautiful. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. So tonight, as I stated before, I'm really excited about the guests we have tonight. Tonight it's Mother Earth Day, and we're going to talk about Mother Earth today. Uh, During this time of crisis, we have no intentions to minimize what is going on in our lives, in our country, in the world. But on this day, we want to celebrate Earth and look at some positives of what's going on. What can we learn today from what's going on, moving into the future? And what's your view of COVID-19 and its effects on Mother Earth? Mother Earth is always creating, dissolving, and recreating. This has become more apparent to people in the midst of COVID-19. Can we help the healing of Mother Earth? And the guest tonight will touch on this, and I'm just really excited to hear from each of these panelists. Like I said, we have a great group of guests tonight. For me, Daryl and I's conversation a couple of months ago when the outbreak first took place, we realized that Earth was taking a deep breath. And I know Shanoa was on the show, and some others were on the show, and we had a climate conversation. And today, we see the same thing. Today on the news, different reports, different studies show that even LA right now has got some very clean air. The traffic has slowed down. And we look around at the water, and I spoke with someone out on Lummi Island, and they talked about how beautiful the water looks, how quiet and peaceful and alive once again. For myself, in the last, I don't know, decade, a lot of work has been put in on a national level, on a state level, on a local level, for our waters, for our treaty rights. And it all always points back to, as Uncle Larry Kinley would say, the salmon. Everything we do, everything we stand for as Lummi people points back to the salmon. And we witnessed the victory of the Culverts case here at Lummi with some other, the Washington tribes, and the blockage of the salmon's ability to return and spawn and continue that way of life. For us, this earth, Mother Earth, is every single one of your givers of life. It's a shared mother that we all share together. And over the past decade, I've been fortunate to work with Billy Frank and Randy Kinley and Larry Kinley and many others who have gone to the other side and are now ancestors. But just to be a part of that fight and never give up and be that voice for the voiceless is something that I will treasure and cherish forever. Learning what it means to be that voice for everything within, for our mother. Earth is, from my lens and what I've been taught from my grandmother, Nancy, especially, growing up, the little nuggets teaching me things while walking the beach and just in life in general. Life is the producer of everything for us. It has sustained us. Our mother has sustained us and taken care of us, and we have taken care of her. And 165 years ago, at the signing of the treaty, our world, as we knew it, since time immemorial, changed drastically. And in the last 165 years, we've witnessed this inability to harvest from this garden that has produced for us since time immemorial because of a new way of life, because of policies that have gotten us to where we are. Whether we're talking about the salmon, whether we're talking about the orcas who have been here, have fished side by side with us, shared these highways called the Salish Sea with us since time immemorial. Their struggles are also our struggles. And it's all connected to our mother, our shared mother, because it's not just us, the human species, it's all that's within. And we've been very vocal over the last 8 years in my years of leadership, as I said, on a national level, state level. And it's always such a challenge to try to create that empathy that Arlie just mentioned, create that empathy with policymakers, with governments, with the president, to really hear and feel what it is and where we're coming from when we speak for those that can't speak. When we talk about the purity of the rivers, we talk about the Salish Sea is alive, the rivers are alive, the earth is alive. They all have spirits. It's definitely a challenge to create that empathy. But what I love about the indigenous and the indigenous fights, not just here in this country, but all over the world, is they keep trying and they keep trying to tell that story. And they have this resilience and belief, because without belief, you cannot win this war and assure the future generations a good future with these gifts that we have been blessed with, that we are destroying. And I think in these conversations with you, guests, it's important. I hope that here today, in the near future, that this isn't a red or blue thing. This isn't a political thing. This is reality. And through this time of crisis, through these challenges we're facing, all of us today, with COVID-19, with the coronavirus, I think it really sheds light on where our thinking needs to go. We need to acknowledge what the policies that were made in the past got us to where we are. We need to be honest with ourselves, not just for us and for our generations, but for future generations. Because the reality is, I'm not a scientist, but Uncle Larry always put it the best, Larry Kinley. He said, we need common sense. We need leaders with common sense. Yes, science is important, but we were here long before science, and everything was perfect. Everything was pristine. When it's perceived that when the settlers got here, there was nothing, that was our everything. And we had everything, and our world was perfect. And how do we get back to that mindset that when we think we might have nothing in terms of this gift from Mother Earth, it's actually everything. And we don't want to see the catastrophic, because Mother Earth will restore herself if she has to. And that's not going to be fun for our species. It's not going to be fun for us. And it's not fair to our future generations to just sit idle and hope that change comes. But the change is not going to come with the way that we create policy and allow things to continue to happen. And timeframes have collapsed to get us to where we are today. And it's going to take more time to get us out of what we're in now. But I think with this crisis we're all living in today, it is exposed that it is possible. And I think for all of us, we agree that as long as it's possible, maybe not probable, but possible, if there's a possibility, then we should be doing it, especially as leaders, and especially as those who have a voice to speak for the voiceless. So I'm really excited to hear from each and every one of you. We have a diverse group of leaders at a state level, future national level with Beth, and tribal level. So I'm excited for this conversation. I thank each and every one of you. All of you watching tonight, thank you for being here. My name is Jay Julius. I will be your host tonight. My traditional name is Watatlam, and we just want to celebrate Earth, our shared mother, our Mother Earth, and how can we move forward into the future, assuring our future generations have at least what we have celebrated and had the privilege of experience. I always share my father was born in 1955. He passed when I was 7, but um, he was able to dive into the river. There was a boat that went up the river. Now it's tough to get up that river in a jet boat. Um, so those realities and where we're at, we have to understand that this here in Washington State wasn't an apple state 165 years ago. It was a salmon state. And how do we get back to that? How do we get back to where restore Mother Earth to its natural? And I'm thankful for each and every one of you. And first, I want to introduce someone I've spent a lot of time working with, creating policy together, working to protect the salmon, the Salish Sea. I love her persistence and ability to collapse timeframes to get things done. I'm thankful for her. She represents our nation. She is one of my Lummi Nation leaders. Lisa Wilson Ayal, Councilwoman. Lisa, just what are your thoughts and what's your view on COVID-19 and its effect on Mother Earth? You know, what is the positive that's coming from this crisis that we all face? Mother Earth, as I stated earlier, is always creating, dissolving, and recreating. This has become more apparent to people in the midst of COVID-19. Can we help the healing of Mother Earth? What have you witnessed and what have you seen through this time, through these challenging times? And thank you for being here, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. I really appreciate and you hosting this, and I'm honored to be on this show today, especially on today, Earth Day. As Jay stated, my name is Lisa Wilson. My grandmother was Sarah James from Lummi, and my grandfather was Charles Wilson from Cape Mud in Canada, and my dad was Rusty Wilson. And why that's so important is that my grandmother and my grandfather, they met in a fish cannery in Boston in the early 1920s. And fishing has been a part of my life. I started fishing the year before the Judge Holt decision. My dad instilled in me the importance of the salmon to our people and the importance of the case that led to, upholding our treaty rights. So that's something that's been instilled in me from a very young age. And I know that, I'm grateful for the ancestors that fought what they fought for in order to have what we have today. And I feel that it is my sacred obligation to carry that work forward. And so as the tribes know that salmon is as important as the air that we breathe. They say when the tide is out, the table is set, and we are the salmon people. And so the way that I look at climate change, it's through the lens of the salmon. Back as Jay said, since time immemorial, we've been salmon people, and back in that time with the pristine habitat, our salmon thrived, and so did our people. And so, the way that I look at the years that have passed and the habitat degradation and climate change, that our salmon are sick, and so are our people. I relate that we are parallel with the salmon. Our orca are sick, our people are sick. So I do know that the impacts of climate change, as far as ocean acidification and marine survival for our salmon, the low flows, the warmer water temperatures, the blob, habitat degradation, all of that contributes to how we got to where we are today. And as far as, the population growth, in our area, we're the most hit hard with thousands of people moving into our area weekly. I've been witness to having to go down to our salmon meetings down in Seattle and Olympia, and the traffic and just how horrible that, how many people that come into this area and more people are trying to find areas for them to live in, that's taken a toll on our salmon. And it's just something that, I feel like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of anxiety around that because, I don't want to have that burden in my lifetime of our salmon disappearing on our watch. And so that's why, we really try what the tribes have been saying for a long time of the different issues that have been happening, but nobody's been listening because it's all in the name of progress. But is that really progress when we lose our salmon? I don't think so. And what I've seen in this last little while with, us not being able to travel, that, it is there's been a lot of different, what we've been saying is, we need to slow down. We need to look at this sort of stuff. And this COVID crisis has enabled us to do that, to say, wow, when push comes to shove, we as a society can, political will is, if the political will is there, then we can actually make some differences. And so like Jay was alluding to about the, people being able to see mountains they haven't seen in years, and over in Italy that they've got dolphins, and they've seen the jellyfish come back and that sort of thing. It is a clear message, the powers that be stepped in to say, look what can happen if we just, take a step back. And so that's something that I see that, I hope that, we don't go right back into the daily life that we were living before because it wasn't working. And so I see this as a message that we've got to take the time and really think about how we're going to move forward in a better way. And so that's, with the sustainable renewable energy, I hope that we put a lot of efforts into that we can be living in a different way. And like I said, we really do need to come together for the orcas, for our salmon, because like I said, there is just a lot of anxiety of not having our salmon and losing our identity and our culture. So like I said, I just want to thank you for inviting me on the show, and I look forward to hearing what others have to say.
Hi, Scott. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And yeah, so much exposed during these times, as Lisa mentioned. Next guest is Shinoa Igawa, Lummi and Sklallam. Shinoa, what's your view of COVID-19 and its effect on Mother Earth? Mother Earth is always creating, dissolving, and recreating. This has become more apparent to people in the midst of COVID-19. Can we help the healing of Mother Earth? You do a great job of speaking to many different things, and we really appreciate you joining us on the call tonight, on the show tonight. Please share a few words on your thoughts and what you're witnessing right now in Mother Earth.
Thank you, Jay. And thank you for doing such a good job as usual, being the host here this evening. And thank you for your words, Lisa. Thank you for all that you shared. And thank you, Arlie, for opening us up with a song and blessing this conversation. It's an honor to be here. My name is Shinoa Igawa from Lummi and Sklallam. And I feel like I've been thinking a lot about what's been going on as of late with COVID, and not just with the COVID, but the earth itself and our Mother Earth and our responsibility. And I've been seeing with the onset of the virus and the way that it's brought the world to a standstill, that I've seen it not with the tragedies that are going on and the hardships that people are suffering, but the positivity of how, as a planet, we can all come to a stop and have the opportunity to really look and see what is possible, as you were mentioning there, Jay. And I feel like, to me, thinking about our Mother Earth and thinking about our own lives and thinking about the salmon and thinking about the orcas and thinking about all life, as a Native person, the way we understand that, the way our teachings are no matter what tribe you come from, the teachings are the same, that we're made of this Mother Earth, that we're made of our Father Sky, that we carry the water in our veins, in our blood, that we're made of the earth, that we're made of the plants, we're made of the animals, and we have a respect and an acknowledgement and an understanding about the reciprocity and what it means to have a relationship built on respect. And we have our teachings and our stories that talk about not taking too much, you know, taking what you need, and offering gratitude and thanks, and being able to help other people with what it is that's being harvested from the land, whether it's the plants or the animals or the salmon. And I feel like those teachings, they need to come back. And I feel like what you were mentioning in the beginning, Jay, about how the world has changed so rapidly in the last 165 years from the Lummi standpoint, is that, you know, it's a world that's built on the mind again. You know, we talked about this in the other show as well. You know, it's the mind is the one that gets excited, and it wants to create all kinds of things that we don't really think about our connection to the root, you know, the root that we're standing on our Mother Earth, and we have our roots that are in our territories. And I think as Native people, you know, one of the reasons we've been able to stand for our land and our waters is that we understand our interconnection with the land and with the water and with all the living beings of that territory. And I think sometimes I think about it, and I think people who've moved from different places, maybe they forgot about the origin of where they came from in their land and the connection to it. And then it's kind of like you're floating, you know, and you're not anchored, you don't have a foundation. But it's a part of the way of life of a traditional Native person, you know, the getting up in the morning and offering your prayer and recognizing that you have a gift of a new day that's upon you, and that you're going outside and you're acknowledging the spirits that are coming across the earth at that time, and you're asking for that positive day, you're giving thanks first, always giving thanks, and then you're asking to live in a good way, to have good health, you know, to pray for your family. And the prayers, you know, some people have an adversity to the word prayer, but a prayer to me, you can also say it's a way of having a positive mind and a positive heart and an open way of seeing the world, where when you take care of one thing, you're taking care of yourself. One of our teachings about generosity, you know, when we have that teaching, you know, if you have something good, give it away. The best thing that you have, give it away, because there's a universal flow that is a real thing, that you give that thing away and more comes back to you, and you give back to the salmon, and then the salmon come to you. All our stories are like that. I remember hearing stories of some of our elders from some of our tribes around here who would go stand in the water and sing their song, and the salmon would come. And so their relationship was so connected deeply on a spiritual level, and one of an understanding that makes me proud to be a human being, to be alive, and to be on this Mother Earth. And I just hope that you know, the ones of us that have a voice will help to bring teachings to all people and to the children, because they want to hear these things, and children do naturally care for things. They care for life, the way I've seen it. And so thinking about COVID, you know, bringing us all to a stop, and having the clearing of the atmosphere and the clearing of the water, and thinking about how we can remember that when we go back out, I don't want to see it be the same either. You know, as Lisa was saying, I want to see us make some changes, and I want us to see us really think about what it is that we're engaged with in our daily life. Like, what kind of choices are we making? The things that we're buying in the world, where do they come from? Are they from companies that have ethics, that have an understanding about the way that we need to protect our earth, and we need to restore the natural ecosystems of this planet, because the health of the earth is our health. There is no distinction between it, because we are a part of it. We come from it. If the earth is sick, we're sick. If we're sick, the earth is sick. It's as simple as that. It's like what you said, Jay, it's common sense. But somehow common sense gets forgotten sometimes. And so looking at that, how can we bring back and teach people about the choices, because we live in a society where so much is told to us constantly, and if we don't think for ourselves and we don't really look at it with our life being a part of this earth, that we are nature, we're made of nature, we're not humans and then the earth is here. And you know, it's not just us humans, it's everything, it's the forests and all of the creatures of the earth that we need to think about. And the health of one is the health of all. And so as a human race, I look at the COVID, but we've been sick for a long time. There's a lot of sicknesses that are on this planet. There's a lot of illness and a lot of health problems. And maybe this will help us to look at those too and realize, how do we get back into balance within our own health, within our own body, that it reflects directly upon how we interact with the earth. And so if we're thinking about growing our own food, or harvesting our salmon, and you know, how are our rivers, how are our waters, are we taking care of them? What are we putting into the faucet? What are we, you know, what are we pouring down the drain? Where is it going? It's going into the earth, and it's coming back into us. So if it's not something we can eat or drink, maybe we need to think about it, you know. There's a way to do this that it can be in health and in balance. And I'm just hoping that we can really look at that. I think about agriculture. I'll try and bring it to a close here, but I think about the agricultural system as well. And I think about the genetic manipulation of seeds. And I think about companies that are just trying to profit upon having patents on different seeds and wanting to create certain kinds of chemicals that have to be interacting with that seed in order for the plant to grow, and genetically manipulating it so that it's not even part of the natural world anymore. And now it's something created by man. And if it's created by man, maybe it's not so good. And looking at the way that there's a diversity in the ecosystem that needs to be maintained. There's a diversity of plants. There's a diversity within ourselves, and how we would harvest seasonally, and what's available. As Arlie mentioned, with the seasons, you know, there's different plants. There's different times that the salmon are running. There's a way that we get back in line with the earth, and we have health, and then we give back to the earth, and we give thanks to the earth. And we don't need to take too much. Maybe that's a message too. It's just like, it feels good to not take too much, and it feels good to slow down. And I just hope that we can continue in this direction. And we have a serious crisis still at hand with climate change. So we are seeing things clear up, but it's here in this area, it's the warmest, driest spring on record in decades. So we have real issues that go beyond COVID, and I'm grateful that I feel it's a miracle that we get to stop and have this time as an entire world to reflect upon this and really unite. Like Lisa was saying, it's like unity, care, love, you know, respect, getting over our differences and recognizing that we're all from the human race, that we're all a part of this earth, and in order to see these changes happen. And we can do it. It is possible. It's totally possible. And I'm going to be there to do my part as much as I can. I'm just kind of saying to the earth, I'm here, I'm ready, you know, use me how you want to, because I care about it. I care about this life. I care about our kids. I care about the future generations. I care that we eat our salmon and that it doesn't make us sick because they're sick. You know, it's important. There's a lot of important things going on right now. So thank you for having me on the show tonight, and I'll go ahead and leave it at that for now. Thank you to all the guests, and thanks again to Daryl and for having this platform for us to come together this way. Thank you.
Shanoa, thank you. Thank you for the great words and your thoughts around Mother Earth here on Earth Day, and all that is important to all of us. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining us on the show. Always a pleasure. Our next guest is Arlie Naskahi from Dina Nation. Dina Nation. Arlie, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for the opening prayer, opening song. Just want to, again, get some thoughts around what's your view of COVID-19 and its effects on Mother Earth, and the conversations you've heard tonight from the three previous guests. Please share some thoughts with us and with the audience.
Thank you. As I begin my talk, I wanted to share with those of you out there this paint. This paint is the red paint of our people. It's very, very sacred paint. It's used in our ceremonies all across our people. And it's not just our people, all across the world. It's an old history with this paint. As I was learning about science, anthropologists, some of them have said they trace humankind's beginning to the times when they dug up graves thousands and tens of thousands years old, and when they found the bodies, the remains of the bodies with the red paint on them, they said they knew this was a people who were making a place and an understanding of who they were connected to the earth by the use of this paint. It's very beautiful, and it's something that we use in our ceremonies in many different uses. As I was taught, this paint represents our earth. In our language, our name is Nahastan, Nahastan. And if you translate that, the simple meaning is earth woman, earth woman. And many of our people have added mother to that, Nahastan Shema. And this paint is very, very interesting. If you look at the chemical structure of this paint, its main ingredient is iron oxide. And when I was in astronomy in college, they talked about the studies what's at the very center of the earth. And they said at the very center of the earth is iron. It's solid iron. And the heat is so great down there that everything else is melted away, and at the very core is iron. And so iron is very, very, very interesting. And the gravity that holds us is that spirit of the earth. Without that, we can't even move around. We'd just be floating from place to place. But so all these things represent how, yes, the earth as our mother, as our grandmother, all this side. One of the things that I've regathered myself as I have deprogrammed myself and put my mind and thinking and spirit back into our people's ways, is just the importance of recognizing the female spiritual side of life. And this was something when the people came from other lands, they brought us a different way of thinking, and they said, you don't have to do that anymore. All you have to do is just think of the male, and that one is the only one you need to talk to. And you know, it was through having puberty ceremony for my daughter to become a woman that the restoration for me in my heart began to occur as my daughter went through this blessing ceremony. And on the final day, as she was running back, I said to myself, I will never be a part of a way of thinking that will deny this beautiful spiritual part of who we are as Native people again from us. And so that's a pledge that I took on that day, to recognize the importance of our female spiritual part of us. As our people teach all of us are male, female. They teach us our left side is our male side, our right side is our female side, and everything's to be in balance. This is where I think a lot of humankind is really confused today, and is very lost. As I've grown older and been involved in ceremony and culture, one thing that has really come to me is, as I look and I observe, is how much truth there is in how nature works and how life, as you said in the very beginning, it regenerates and passes through, and all of life on a constant basis, as they say in the quantum laws of physics, everything seeks equilibrium. And that law is very, very true as we know it as Native people. Everything seeks for that, to be in balance. That's a very, very deep, deep physical law, spiritual law for us as Native people. And so now what has occurred and is still occurring, even though coronavirus is here, humankind, we developed all these different thoughts and ideologies and beliefs and politics, laws of economics, all these things that are human made up thoughts and thinking in the mind, so great and so profound that has caused divisiveness among people across the world, that people will go to war for those beliefs. People will bomb each other. People will go out in destruction against one another because these thoughts they have in their head. Whereas what we see is Native people is just look at the earth, how it is. It's right there. Look at what Earth Woman has provided for us. Look at the way that she takes care of us. Look at the way she continues to return and give us with grace and with love the gifts that she has to give, even though there's the misuse that has occurred, pollution and all these things. It's mind-blowing when you think of that. And to me, with coronavirus, that is one of the great teachings that is being called for, to call that back. That all these thoughts and beliefs that we have built and spent our lives upon, and that they taught us in school, you know, or the great things of civilization, right now, no. Look back at how life, we need to be in connection with life and respectful. When I was a little boy, it's probably third, definitely by fourth grade on the reservation, they were teaching us about science, and of course, Darwinism, all these things. And I first heard the Darwin, you know, thinking and thought. I don't know if he actually said this, but I think people have applied this later through time, that it's all about the survival of the fittest, that evolution is the survival of the fittest. From learning about our creation stories and what our people believe, it's that no, it's not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of all. And that each part of life that Earth Woman now has provided and put in place, and all the other holy people, is there to nourish one another. I really love the beautiful stories that I heard when I came to this land about the Salmon people and humankind, and the agreements that they made long time ago to take care of each other. And that those gifts are given back and forth and sustained. And that does show that as Native people, we have continued, and we continue to hold on to that belief that we are to help each other, that our connection with nature and all those things is fundamental. The spirit, female side of the spirit of life, Nahastan, is very, very important. And it's going to be a struggle for a lot of people, because that concept for many people is far, far away. I believe humankind, going back through time, we understood that, and we knew what that was. I'll give you an example. When I was a young boy, and I was learning the names for the months of the year, my parents were teaching me January, February. So I was learning, you know, little by little. I wasn't taught as a young person to speak our language, so I had to learn as time went on. So I would recite them back. I got to around June, and I would say, okay, so July is this. And then my dad would say, no, son, that's not right. You can't just say the months and the names are this and that. And I looked at him, I said, what are you talking about? I thought they went by the months. And he said, no. He said, there's a problem, because in the English way of thinking, there's only 12 months. But in our original calendar, there was 13 months. For a full lunar cycle is 4 weeks, 28 days. And the same cycle in our women that they go through in order to prepare, get ready for childbirth and cleanse, and then prepare again over 28 days. This cycle is very sacred and very fundamental. If you take 52 weeks divided by 4, the number's 13. That number itself has been turned into something evil when it is a very, very sacred number. We all come from that number. That ceremony of how the moon runs and these relationships of the female with the earth and the tides and everything that goes around us, the weather patterns and all those things is very deeply interrelated. And it's time for us to, as Native people and others who want to follow this, to stand up and resist the degradation or the suppression of this knowledge again around the earth. So for me, I use Nahastan, I use the term Earth Woman, because I see in American society, they're kind of flippant about the word Mother Earth. You know, you watch the weather, oh, Mother Earth is playing a little trick on us this week. You know, gave us sunny days, and now Mother Earth is gonna give us some rainy days. You know, so they're just flippant about it. Like this is a term that we should just throw around and we can use and tease about because it's just part of mythology. When I began to use the term Earth Woman and use that term and use it even in English, it is very descriptive of the nature of this side of how we are related. And so I encourage people, you know, to think about that. One of the things that troubled me ever since growing up as a little boy is people also made up the belief that this isn't our real home. You know, we're only here temporary, and then our real home is somewhere else. You know, we're really hoping and working for the day we're going to go to some glorious place. It's glorious, no disease, no trouble, no heartache, no death, and this, you know. And so as I grew older, I started thinking like, what, you know, to me, that kind of thinking is a basis for, we don't have to care for this earth. It's here for just our use and either to transcend ourselves to some greater plan. For us as Native people, no, Earth Woman, we are connected. We are dependent on each other. I love the comments that were given and all the descriptions. It's important wherever you are as Native people to fight for, protect the animal, the water, the forest, the wind and air, people of where you live, because within that are your spiritual ways and ceremonies. And it's great to see over time our people have done that, and your people here in this region are doing that. You're standing up and fighting for your relatives, the Salmon people, or the Orca people, or the Tree people. Those are all your relatives. They are in your songs. They are in your prayers, in your ceremonies. Each region of people has its same. It's those relatives in the biological, as we would say, world that surround them. It is imperative for us to continue to do that. And that is how we have maintained a position today that is very powerful. And not just us, but other indigenous people of the world who've held on to this truth. And when I was a young boy, the elders told me, take time to learn and to study and participate, because there's going to be a time in the future when the world is going to be chaos. The world is going to be all messed up and people are going to be just confused. And at that time, they said, they said to the young people, and our knowledge is going to be paramount to be shared. So I say that again to the young people. Listen, learn, participate, gather this knowledge, these teachings, because it's going to be value for the future.
Awesome.
What else do I want to say? I wanted to show some of the simple ways. This drum is a circle, and our people's teachings is all things are in a circle, and everything that is connected in life. And the circle represents Nahastan, Earth Woman. It represents so many things to us as Native people, and everything is connected. Everything of life is connected together like this. So I encourage our allies who are out there to bolster yourselves, to when you go out and walk in the world, talk to the earth. Nahastan, talk to earth woman, talk to the plants, the trees, the animals. As you share what you're looking for and seeking in your heart, that relationship will begin to grow for you too. It's very important for all humankind. And so I appreciate all of those. I remember I was in 7th grade when Earth Day first started. So I'm 63 years old, so I was in 7th grade. And it was a momentous thing at that time. There was a lot of discussion about impacts in the future down the road, a lot of discussion about overpopulation and encouragement to limit how many children that we would have, because predictions of everything as we see it now, overpopulation, these things. And people would go out and pick up trash in the community, we would go do things and plant things like that. And it was all started back in those days. It kind of went out of, fashion for a while, but I'm glad that it's back. And everybody, we can ally together as children. Nahastan, the Achina, in our language, that's what we say. We are children of Earth Woman. Nahastana, Achina, that we help each other and stand together. Thank you, all my relatives, for this time and chance to speak. Appreciate
Harley,
it.
Haishka, thank you. Great words. Thank you very much for joining us. Next, we're going to move on to another special guest, Jeff Renner. Thank you for joining us. Jeff Renner's a retired chief meteorologist, scientist, journalist, King TV, recipient of 9 Emmy Awards for science reporting, invited to interview President Obama on climate change at the White House. He is a speaker, a consultant on stress adaptation, climate change, climate eco-anxiety. Jeff, you and I had a meeting a couple of months ago, maybe a few months ago. I don't know. I've kind of lost track of time, but something really captured my thoughts. And I think a lot about Earth. I think a lot about climate change. I think a lot about whatever you want to call it. I'm a fisherman. I've been fishing since I was probably 2 years old. I think my father first brought me out, but I never thought of it from that perspective and the way you worded that. And it really resonated with me. And my son, who's 19, my daughter, who's 20, I have a daughter who's 8. And the climate anxiety of the youth, you brought that up, and just really interesting, and it fascinated me to think about this from the youth's perspective, something that we as adults might overlook. So I'm really honored and honored to have you on tonight. And I want to thank you. I look forward to doing a show with you next month and on your show. Thank you for that invite. And just ask that you share some thoughts and where we're at today and with COVID-19 and the world we live in today, Mother Earth here on Earth Day. Thank you for being here. Welcome, and please share some thoughts, Jeff.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. And I would say I sense a lot of resonance with what I've heard before from Arlie and Genoa and Lisa. I tend to view a lot of these issues, especially in terms of climate and the environment, through the lens of an atmospheric scientist. That's what I did for more years than I'd care to remember, perhaps at times. But I think if you talk to any scientist, whatever their field of specialization, their attraction to that is really built on a foundation of awe. It could have been a thunderstorm, it could have been a tornado, it could have been some force that they saw of nature that really attracted their attention. And so while I look at this through technology, through the science that I spent a lot of time learning, I also see a sense of fascination and awe with the relationships that make up our environment. Very early on, when I was a practicing meteorologist, we didn't understand certain weather patterns, and being close to the ocean, all of you have a sense of that. And the odd thing is that there wasn't a lot of consultation between people that studied the ocean and people that studied the atmosphere. As we began to collaborate, as we developed a relationship, we developed a more perfect understanding of how all these pieces fit together, and in turn be able to predict and understand things that much better. So I really see relationships are at the key here, are the foundation of this. And when there are not relationships, that's when we run into trouble. I also view this as a person of faith, that it has been said that a crisis in the environment is at once a crisis of meaning and a crisis of the spirit. And we've heard that very beautifully expressed earlier this evening. So I think that's very important to understand. As we look at, I think, COVID, a very good friend of mine just called me yesterday to tell me that her mother had passed away from COVID-19. So it's profoundly a major tragedy. But I think, as also has been expressed, we want to question when you hear people say, do we want to return to normal? How soon can we get back to normal? And I think we want to question that. I read something a little bit earlier just this morning that I thought might be worthwhile to share. And this particular person described this as an opportunity to have a return from the exile from our consciousness. He pointed out that it took the smallest and seemingly most insignificant aspect of life to remind a virus, to remind us that we are not the masters of this universe. We are not the masters of this planet. That military power, the technology, that money has its limitations, and that we need to look at this as an opportunity, an invitation to ask, what is most important in our life? What is most important in terms of our relationship with the planet, with all the ecosystems, with all the creatures that we share this planet with, and select those. And I sincerely hope that most of us, at least, will have taken this opportunity to be thrown together with friends, to be thrown together with family, and to think about our relationships, to make some different choices. You talked about anxiety, and I had an early introduction to this. Almost 40 years ago, my job at King was to cover the renewed activity at Mount St. Helens. I came this close numerous times to having lost my life covering that volcano. And one of my good friends down there was a scientist from the U.S. Geological Survey by the name of Dr. David Johnston. They have the Johnson Ridge Volcano Observatory down there. And after David passed, after he was one of the victims of the volcano, I had an opportunity to visit with his father. And his father's name was Tom. And I didn't know quite what to say to a father that had to look at me as if, I'm glad to talk with him, but why did it have to be my son that was killed and not me? And I remember the last words that he said as we prepared to part company was, you know, there's a part of me that wishes I had never encouraged David to become interested in volcanoes, to be interested in geology. But he said, I couldn't do that, because one of the things David told me was, Dad, for me, each day is an adventure. It's an opportunity to learn something new, to use that knowledge to get better at what I do, and to use that knowledge and that skill to help other people. And I really hope, as we move forward from COVID, that we'll apply some of that same attitude that David expressed so well to coming into better relationship with ourselves and coming into relationship with the planet around us.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for sharing. What a great question for all of us to ask. What is most important? Oh, well, the opportunity you mentioned. What are the opportunities through this time, through these times that we're all experiencing, and really acknowledging and recognizing what is most important to us in life, because this really does expose that. How important is Earth and our health and the future, the certainty of future in these uncertain times. Jeff, thank you so much. I look forward to working with you in the future and doing another show in the near future down in Seattle with yourself. Thank you again for being here. Our next guest is a friend of all of ours, a friend of mine. I've known Beth Dolio for several years now. I first met her during Lummi Nation's successful fight to protect our treaty rights, our Salish Sea, our sacred lands up at Wichiakan, Cherry Point. I met her. She worked for an organization then, and she is currently a Washington State representative from the 22nd Legislative District. She is running for Congress, and I endorse her. I support her. I love her policy making, her her political will to stand for what is right, to be a voice for the voiceless. That is who she was, it's who she is today, and she has proven that it is who she is as a leader on a local level, on a state level, and soon out in DC. So it is my pleasure to introduce Beth Dolio. Beth, welcome and thank you for joining us here this evening on Mother Earth Day. Please share some thoughts and what's on your mind, and maybe what are some of the effects on Mother Earth that you have witnessed through this these times of uncertainty that we're all going through.
Great. Well, I am really honored to be here today to share a few thoughts with you. And it was such a pleasure to work with you, Jay, on the coal export campaign, making sure that we were protecting our ancestral grounds, really. I mean, that was so much at stake with that, and really all up and down the West Coast. But we prevailed, and I think we have some opportunities here to continue to move us forward in that direction. I, like my colleague, Representative Deborah Lakanoff, am a runner. And they had closed the trails here in Olympia, and I love to run in the trails. And they have opened them. It's a soft opening. They're not really letting people know, but I had heard through the grapevine that indeed they were open. And so on my last run, I went up to Priest Point Park, which is this gorgeous park in Olympia, fairly close to my home. And the birds were just a cacophony in the forest. There's no one there, just me. And I laid down on the ground. I stopped my run and laid down on the ground and just listened to the birds and how happy they were. It was really, I mean, it was just, I felt it all through my body. I just felt the power of Mother Earth. And it was a really special moment for me. And I think, you know, this is a really challenging time for a lot of people. And I'm really glad that we've listened to science. And in this state, we have a governor who's really surrounding himself by people who are true public health scientists that are really helping to direct how we're managing this, because the way we're managing this is really protecting our elders, because this disease impacts our elders more than others. And I feel like that's just a really important thing when we think about climate change. And we see that we've been able to kind of, as a community, really step up to the plate and respond in a way that protects our people, which is also having this sort of effect of protecting our planet for the moment. And when it comes to fighting climate change, that's the kind of thing that we're going to need to do, that we need to do, not that we're going to need to do, but that we need to do, is we need to step up as a community and figure out what the solutions are to move us off of fossil fuels and onto fuels that keep our economy moving, keep ourselves moving, but don't pollute our rivers, our oceans, and the habitat that our salmon and orca, and that we rely on for our own health. So I think there are so many lessons that you know that we can take away from this. I mean, one of the things that I'm really enjoying is I'm having these lovely dinners with my family. I mean, it's a very simple thing, but it really is a very grounding thing to share a meal with those that I'm spending a lot of time with right now. We're all in these separate rooms, sort of doing our separate thing, and then we come together and we are able to share with one another. There's not a ton of stress around, you know, having to go to the next event and that sort of thing. It's kind of, you know, it's odd. And, you know, I'm a privileged person who gets to have, you know, food security in this. And that's the other piece that I think is really important, is how we're supporting those who don't have homes, who are losing their jobs. They're losing their jobs, they're also losing their health care, because right now, healthcare is tied to jobs, to employment, which we need to move away from. Making sure that people who worked in the gig economy have access to unemployment insurance, something that they don't normally have. We've stepped up. The federal government has done a fairly good job in trying to provide more of a safety net in this crisis. And that's the same kind of thing that we need to do as we move towards a fossil-free future. We need to make sure that we're doing it together and that we have all people's interests in mind. Those who have lower incomes, we want to make sure that they're not impacted by the transition disproportionately. We want to make sure that it's a worker-centered. Your area has a lot of oil refineries. People rely on those jobs to put food on their families' tables. We want to make sure that what change we make and how we make it and how rapidly we make it, it's a worker-centered transition. And I think that we can take so much of what we've been doing in terms of how we've dealt with this. There's a few things I would change for sure. I think the overall national leadership really has not been terribly, there's been some good things about it, but there's been, a lot of wishy-washiness and not like clear direction. I think in Washington, we have a lot of clear direction. Governor said, this is what we're doing. We're binding together and we're going to get through this together and we're going to come out the other end and we're going to put our economy back together and we're going to protect our elders and everyone, as many as we can from contacting this disease. So those are some of the things that have been floating through my mind. We're working through this virus. I'm anxious, just like everybody, to start to get the economy moving again. We can save onto this teleworking. I mean, there's a lot to it. A lot of people like it, and it's just a lot of commute time. I think some people, I'm hearing from people that there's actually the productivity in some instances has gone up because of the teleworking. Of course, people have more ability to kind of, spend less time commuting and spend more time, working and taking care of, whatever they're taking care of at home. So I think we can learn and we can do it, and being forced to do it, we've shown that there's tools out there that can really help us do that, that can help us not return to the way that things were before, and that we can move forward in a new way and take some of the things that have been good forward with us. So I look forward to being a part of it, hopefully at the congressional level, representing the 10th Congressional District. And in the meantime, I'm continuing to represent the 22nd Legislative District and making sure that the constituents who are falling through the cracks are getting attention from our office and from the agencies that they're interacting with. And I really appreciate the opportunity, and has been a pleasure to hear from all of the previous panelists. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Beth. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your servant leadership. Thank you for your willingness to step forward and be an example for my daughters, and be an example for all of us, and being such a great voice, and utilizing that common sense. I know you're very intelligent, and Jeff, I meant no offense to scientists. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew we were here long before science and long before scientists. And oftentimes government uses science when it's convenient. And I think we lack a little bit of common sense and leadership. And Beth, you bring that definitely to the table. You bring that voice to leadership in Olympia. And I hope you continue to move forward and be a great leader and example for all of us. With that, you mentioned the birds and laying down, and I kind of shared a similar experience, not only with the birds at home. You don't even need music at my house, just so many trees and birds singing, and but on the water as well. It just going out there and getting subsistence and feeding community members with my son and my uncles, and harvesting a few halibut and prawns, but how alive the Salish Sea seems. The seagulls and the eagles, and it's just alive, and it's hard to put into words, but just some great things coming from this time that we're all in. There is good taking place, and I love what each and every one of you said. You each bring so much value to this conversation, and we do have another special guest who's joined us. But first, I want to thank board member Auntie Danita, for always being here, doing such a great job as a board member. All the board members, if I miss any, Bella is on, and Hillary Kagi, and Bo, and John, and Mark, and Daryl, and Natasha, the whole team here at Setting Sun, for making these conversations possible, not only here, but telling the story, telling the Earth story, telling the tribal stories, telling the canoe journey story. Just being that voice. Thank you to Setting Sun Productions and One from the Heart. We do have another special guest who has joined us, and I want to thank all of you mothers who have joined us here as guests, have participated as panelists, and all of you viewing or will view this. Thank you to the mothers, because that's what this day is all about, is mothers and Earth, our Mother Earth, our ultimate, our shared mother, our shared giver of life. You know, I'm always reluctant to share the pains that we go through in life, but for me, I've experienced a lot of loss from a very young age, clear into present. Last year, my mother's twin lost two children a month apart. One just a couple of years older than me, like my brother, I consider my brother, and then her daughter, my uncle and aunt's daughter. And my mother, the same thing. Myself in 2014, lost a child. And but really, the mother in the pain, and how much love we each have for our mother, and the sacrifice they give from birth, and the fact that we're all born and spend so much time in that womb, and that connection, and then it carries on into life. And how much love do we have for our mother? How much do we appreciate our grandparents? We all have a significant appreciation and deep love and deep connection for our mothers. But what if we all really took that love and appreciation we have for mothers, for our givers of life, and whether red, blue, a believer or not believer, in, call it whatever you will, climate change, the reality is our mothers' veins are polluted. We've injected cancer into our shared mother. How do we start? And no one has to answer this, but something that I think about, and I think we should all think about, because it's your voices who are going to assure a great future for our future generations, because that's what it's all about. But you know, how do we start thinking of it that way? It's not industry or money over desecration, or a little bit of environmental harm justified by some jobs. You know, we're way off balance. And as I shared earlier, Mother Earth will restore herself one way or another. I hope it's not at our expense. I hope we use common sense, and we move into this future with some good leadership, creating new policies, and learning from this moment in time. But Linda Mapes, she's currently writing a book, and I'm excited because I share, she's a few months ago, or maybe it was 4 months ago, out on one of our islands, Lummy's Islands out there. She was writing her book, and at that particular event, I shared and thanked her for being that voice, that motherly voice for Lummi Nation during our fights. She's always there telling the story. Sometimes it's not popular. Just this deep willingness to tell the story. You see the orca in the background of her, and telling our story about our fight to protect the Salish Sea and the southern residents, because they have been here side by side with us, and what happens to them inevitably happens to us. And really telling a great story, being that voice. Linda, I just wanted to invite you to share a few words, some thoughts here on Earth Day, and thank you for joining us on Mother Earth Day. Care to share a couple of thoughts, Linda?
Yeah, thank you. It's delightful to be with you all. And I want to share some helpful things that I've been learning in my reporting this week for the newspaper. These are stories that are going to be coming out probably really soon, within the next week or so. And they filled me with joy, actually, and quite a lot of hope for our world and for one another. So I don't want to sit on that. I want to share it with the community of Children for the Setting Sun. I, I want to tell you that, first of all, I've been working on a story about the Makah Nation. You know, the Makah tribe, they're out in the furthest, very furthest point of the contiguous US. And so they could do what lots of tribes would probably like to do, which is drop the gate. They put up a barricade on March 16th and said, nobody in, nobody out. And it's been a beautiful experience to talk to them about the fact that, you know, having been through the first recorded pandemic in 1853, the smallpox epidemic, that was then followed by measles and by TB and by all the rest. You know, they lost in that first round of the epidemic so many people, thousands of people. Today, we know from some of the research that's been done that they really lost 3/4 of their population through a series of waves of disease. And the remains of their ancestors are in the sand dunes today. They're at Dakwas Park, which is a mass smallpox grave right along the waterfront there. And so, like at Lummi, where they acted fast and they acted first to protect their people, at Makah, they dropped the gate. And so I was interested in doing a story about life behind the line. What's it been like? You know, nobody in, nobody out, other than for emergencies, what have you. And the story of love, honestly, is what has come out of that reporting. People who made a decision. We are not willing to lose one more person, not one, not an elder, not a child, not a beloved community member, period. They've had no cases out at Makah, none. And they're determined to keep it that way. And this is coming, of course, at great economic cost. It's halibut season. Normally, the RV parks and so forth would be packed with RVs from people from all over coming out to catch the incredible bounty, the wealth of the sea. When they went through the treaty time in 1855, they forced Governor Isaac Stevens to throw out the cookie cutter treaty. No, our treaty is going to be different. The sea is my country, is what they said. And they have the only treaty today in the United States that reserves their right to whale and to seal. So these are people who live remotely, and that isolation has been to their advantage at this time. They can sequester themselves. And it's so interesting to hear them talk about how, you know, in some ways, life's really not that different. They have never let go of their hunting and gathering traditions. They go out, they get sea urchins, they get gooseneck barnacles, they get all the luscious, beautiful foods from the tidelands. They have freezers full of halibut and salmon, and you know, they take care of their elders. They are still allowed to go out and cut wood and do the things that are necessary to make sure their elders are comfortable. But it is stay at home and no gatherings. That's the hardest thing. People really miss seeing their families. And they're really adhering to this in their school system, just like at Lummi, where you've changed to a whole new way of drive-through food bank and so forth to make sure the kids are fed, the families are fed. They too are, you know, they turn their high school into ground zero of preparing more than 400 meals, breakfasts, and then lunch every day for every child to make sure that they have that continuity, they have that love and care. And because we can't go out there to report the story, we did something we don't usually do, which is ask them to take the pictures. They're spectacular. They're so much better than anything we would take, because they see it through their lens, and they also have access we would never have. And so what I'm excited about is a beautiful document of an intimacy that has come through social distancing. This requirement of distancing themselves from the whole world has enabled them to reclaim a kind of love and tender care. And they talk about how there's a kind of wistfulness, you know, going out to the beaches and finally it's just theirs again. You know, the giving up of these sacred places, private places, places of gathering to share with a much wider world because of the economic necessity of tourism, you know, to have that back and walk the beach again and just see your family, your other community members, the pleasure in that. It's really a special window into a kind of reclaimed intimacy. And I really look forward to sharing that story and sharing their vision visually with the world. So there's that. And the other thing I want to tell you is something really fun, which is, I think, so important for people to hear a hopeful message today on Earth Day about the incredible resiliency and strength of our Mother Earth. So on the Elwha River, we all know this, we took down the 2 dams that for a century blocked fish passage. It was the largest and remains the largest such action anywhere in the world for recovery. And we've all heard about the Chinook, and we've heard about different aspects, but here's something I hadn't heard until today, which is that summer steelhead are back in that river in such large numbers after only 3 years. It's the biggest summer steelhead run anywhere on the west coast of Washington State, and perhaps anywhere in Washington State. Summer steelhead are a very special fish. They come in summertime. They may even stay a year in fresh water without eating before they spawn. So they have a very unique life history. But what is so exciting about this is that these summer steelhead are actually rainbow trout that had been locked up like jewels in a box behind the upper dam for 100 years, and finally have the ability to reawaken their anadromy, their ability to go to sea. You know, it always happens that some of these juvenile fish, as they're growing up, in a landlocked situation, they'll still go through what's called smoltification. They'll become these little fish that are dying to go to salt water, but they're still on a lake or they're still behind a dam. And so they remain a landlocked rainbow trout. But every now and then they have to open the gates on the dam in a really high flow event, or maybe something really miraculous happens and they take out the dam. And then all those little fish that have been yearning to go to sea, go to sea. And so you have a two-way miracle on the Elwha. You have a resumption of the adults coming up, the Chinook, but you also have this silvery cascade, this beautiful resumption of anadromy in the rainbow trout, and they're now coming back as summer steelhead. And already we're seeing more than 900 of these things in just 3 years. And so it is truly a miracle, a Lazarus from the ashes regeneration. And I cannot wait to tell this story. This was a fish run that was so depleted, people just figured it was extinct. They don't even have a separate status under the ESA. They're just bunched in with winter steelhead. And here they are.
Awesome.
And so I just want to offer that on Earth Day, these 2 stories of love and rejuvenation, and remind ourselves, ultimately, it is about community, isn't it? It's about taking care of one another, and it's about taking care of one another writ large, all beings, not only us, but all the other beings with whom we're so lucky to share this planet. And so it's a beautiful day to share with one another. And thank you for Children of the Setting Sun and One from the Heart for giving us an opportunity to gather and reflect.
Awesome. Linda, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for your work. Thank you for telling the story. You do such a great job, and I look forward to your book when it comes out. If you want me to examine it before it comes out, send it my way.
I will. Don't
Thank
say
you.
You don't mean it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your work. At this time, we are going to, I'm going to call upon Jean Harry to share a few words, maybe say a prayer, and any closing remarks, guests, Shanoa, Jeff, Arlie, Beth. Jeff, one moment, you're muted. Okay, go ahead.
Folks at King TV always wanted to do that. I would offer 2 thoughts. I was talking not long ago with a professional friend of mine, Catherine Hale, who is a very well-known climate scientist. And she said, probably the best thing people could do is talk about the problems and talk about solutions they see.
Mm-hmm.
Some surveys, some research that they had done indicated that a big majority of people rarely, if ever, talked about climate change, environmental degradation among their friends, among their families. And so what you don't hear about gradually fades from your consciousness and gradually fades in terms of being a priority. So I think, number one, just talking about the issues is one. Another thing that I would say is that we've talked a lot about in recent days, by necessity, the COVID pandemic, and rightfully so. But there's an interesting study that was done, I believe, in 2015 in Germany, and it indicated that there were 8.8 million additional deaths as a result of air pollution that would not have occurred if pollution levels were not as high as they were.
Wow.
Those people are dying slower deaths. Might be congestive heart failure, might be a variety of different lung conditions, but those are deaths just the same. And 8.8 million deaths a year is far in excess of what we see from war and from what we see from violence, and certainly disease as well. And the scientist behind that, I'm just looking up his name, he is a cardiologist, and the Johannes Gutenberg University Medical Center in Mainz, Germany, termed it, he said, there is an air pollution pandemic out. And if you view it in terms of the extent and in terms of the severity of it, I think that's a justified statement. And that just speaks to the need to address these environmental issues.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Jeff. Wow. That's staggering. Thank you. Any other closing comments? Any other last thoughts? Okay. Gene Harry. Gene, CM. Heishka for being here. Heishka for joining us. Thank you for being here. And would you like to share a few words and close with a prayer? And we're gonna after Gene shares, we're gonna Heather Sparks is gonna do a little show while Arlie closes with the song also.
Messi, slalom stair, Quinimoxnes, Comensi, Gymnas, A.T. Santos Spray, slalom stair. Oh, 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 Jo inte, det säger namnet, Dion. Het is following all up. 80. Het is 10. Die tamo. Hoe ze eet. Staan niet niet mouth set. Het is. Die is laatlijk te kalaan. Anoch stal. Ze zo hek met het eerst kus je win. Je must kus I. Not so much. Not so much te squallowens. Not so much te teles. Not so much. Kom ook. Zie je yes. Hek met. Dat je win squall. Het kwam palmog mistimoch. Iets die het die tamoch. Kuts die het taset. Kuts die het de tens tamoch. Haitska. Hek met te halitens. Teslenteni the tens to tamoch. I'm going to say thank you, say son. Taking care of spirit. You have lots of weight on your shoulder and you have a good heart worrying about our earth, the mother. I'm going to say thank you for acknowledging all the life givers. The old people used to say, if we forget how to live, you look at the wilderness, every animal out there is our teacher. You look out in the sea, every creature out there is our teacher. When they say the Creator made this world, the forest was our grocery store. Anything and everything in the forest was medicine and edible. He made all the things that could first, and all the animals in the forest and the sea creatures. We were last to be made. We were last to be made on this world, and we were told, "Let me ati itamo." Nitin ten ti itamo. Needs to need to scale, kuts hilam. We're all star people. We all have a little candlelight inside. And today I'm going to say thank you for taking care and acknowledging that the life givers are so important. Not just the human life givers, the salmon, the deer, every creature out there giving life. And so this blanket of sickness come upon us is only warning us to go back in time to take care of ourselves. I'm going to say thank you for your good hearts, for bringing people to talk about the goodness of life, the goodness of relationship. Someone talked about relationship. You have to have a good relationship with your mind and your heart, your whole well-being. And I say, I hold my hands up, children of the setting sun, for always trying to make sure to wake up the people outside, to bring them in, and give them the thing that is so valuable in what you've done today, in the days that's gone, worried about our poor earth, the mother. Now we back up in time and we listen to the animals. Like the sister said, she listened to the birds. Listen to the birds, they have a story to tell. Not just the fish is important. The four-legged, they feast, they feed us. The birds, everything. I hold my hands highly to the people who you gathered and who you're going to gather, and all the ones that you put in place to take care of their mind, their emotion, their well-being. And if you love yourself to the fullest, Love yourself to the fullest. The mind, the heart, it's easy to love who's beside you, beside you, in front of you, and behind you. And that was the strength of our ancestors. What you're doing is taking care of your elders, taking care of your youth. You're the very important, you're the center. And one day you're going to be the elders, your grandchildren's the youth. And that's the biggest medicine that you have in your heart, is that you're making sure you want everybody taken care of. I'm going to say thank you for your strength. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your generosity of trying to make everybody stop and listen. That blanket of sickness around us, let's respect it. And now the Creator will help move it off the way. I think if we fight it, it'll fight back. We respect it. Thank Him, that sickness, for allowing us to be being humble, almost as strong as elders a long time ago, but just bringing that back, a unity of the families. And it's going to show high respect when we gather back in that longhouse, because that longhouse is very, very important. That was the real togetherness. And we're just going to be prepared when we rejoice to be back together in that beautiful homes where we could sing, dance, and pray. And I give thanks to the one who opened the prayer today. Give thanks to each of the speakers, because that is very heartwarming that we're working together, side by side, not ahead of each other. So I hold my hands to Setting Sun for honoring me to share a prayer, share the thoughts of how the value of an earth is in every animal. And we're the lowest of all the species, but we're not supposed to be destroying each other. You're showing it, taking care of each other, taking care of the relatives, the sea creatures. They take care of you. We need to recruit the ones that work in the wilderness, side by side. Once we get all those people side by side, nothing can break you. Your grandchildren will prosper the way our ancestors did. We'll be able to live in those long houses again. Hi, all my relations. Nasi talam ste, nam snas, man say,
Haishka CM, Gene, you're always willing to share a prayer, share your thoughts. You're so full of wonderful nuggets of wisdom and history, and always appreciate you and always thankful for you. And especially your role as Chief Seattle in What About Those Promises? I think you're a Chief Seattle, but thank you, Gene, thank you for you, Haishka. Again, thank you to all the guests who have joined us here tonight. What a great conversation. What great perspectives, and allowing us all to see things from a different lens. We all have different perceptions around Mother Earth, and I learned so much here tonight. I'm so thankful and grateful for this conversation. Arlie, we're going to ask you to go ahead and please share a song. Close us out with a song, and Heather Sparks is going to join on the screen.
Thank you. As has been spoken, thank you to everyone here who shared this evening. Thank you to all those who are currently protecting the people during this time. And thank you to our elders who sacrificed so much so that we can have these teachings and these things today. And thank you for those and all ages and the young people who are participating in their people's ways, so that these will be ensured far into the future. The song that I'm honored to sing tonight, myself and some of my singers in the 1980s, we composed this song together. The desire was to create something that captured this concept that is in our people's ceremonies of Earth Woman and our relationship, and that desire to be in balance and in good relationship with all things. And so that's what this song says. And so it'd be great as sung now as encouragement for all all humankind, for each one. So the words of this song, it says, Nahasan Shema, earth woman, my mother. Nitsi Ka Hojona Sha. So that term right there is very meaningful. It says, upon Nitzis, your body, Baka, the surface of your very body. That denotes that this one that we call Earth Woman is actually living being that holds us up. Nitzis Baka Hojona Shadole. Let it be that I walk upon your beauty with harmony and balance and happiness. Then it refrains towards the end of the song. Nashago shilhojona shadole. And as I go forward from here, may I remain in that way, walking in beauty and harmony all around. So these are the words of the song. And as I sing it, each one of you hold in your minds and thoughts on this Earth Day, this Nahasan Shema, Mother Earth, this day that is being recognized all around the world. What you looking for, what you're desiring for yourself, for all of life, to return toward harmony. And that you, even yourself, you may not be able to control anybody else. Control your own mind, your own actions. We'll try to live and endeavor to live in this way. Way ya ya hey ya ya way ya ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey way ya ya hey way ya yo hey yo hey yo way ya ya hey way yo hey yo hey yo hey yo Nahasan Shema Nitzis Beka Hojon Shadole way Nasha Goshe Hojon Dole oh hey oh hey hey ya ya hey way ya ya hey ya hey ya hey oh hey way ya ya hey way ya ya hey oh hey oh way hey ya ya hey way ya ya hey yo hey yo way yo hey Nahasan Shema Netzes Beka Hojo Nashadole hey way ya way Nasha Goshe Tojo Dole oh hey oh hey hey hey
Hi, Shka. Arlie, beautiful. Thank you. I want to thank Daryl and his team once again, the Children of the Setting Sun team, the board of directors. I want to thank, we want to thank this, the frontline workers, the doctors, the nurses, the bus drivers, the transportation folks, everyone out there. I mean, we need to thank so many, and we're so grateful and thankful for those who are continuing to work, put their lives on the line during these times when we all need groceries, the grocery store workers, the checkers, the stockers, the food providers, and just so thankful. Restaurant owners who are providing food, curbside pickup. So many to thank, but from Children of the Setting Sun and One from the Heart, we thank you for joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy. Haishka, till next time. Thank you again to all you guests. Haishka.